Hello and welcome back to Tropical Garden UK. Join me on part 2 of the Sydney Botanical Garden tour, where we're going to look through the Fernery, the Arid section, and also come across an extremely rare plant that's about to flower. Okay, but we are just about to enter the Sydney Fernery, but you can see they've got some interesting Dixonias. You've actually got some that are kind of grown out of the canopy roof. You've got king ferns. And there is obviously so many different species of ferns that are kicking around, but there is something that I do want to show you, and I hadn't seen one of these before, and it is crazy. We're just going to kind of take a walk through here together and I'll point it out. I'm sure it'll be something that you will notice though. Some nice Siathias. I don't think that is a painted fern, but the variegation on that is really nice. So many different colours, shapes, shades. This is a really interesting one. Look at the new frond coming out of the centre. That must have a 6-foot span on each frond. It doesn't actually have a placard or anything like that to say what species that is, but that's one that I haven't seen before and really like. But that is the one that caught my eye when I was walking around, and this thing is absolutely massive. I thought Dixonia Antarctica's got big and quite big fronds. It seems to kind of get a bit of a trunk, but that must be all the old fronds that have died off. But I mean, look at how thick they are. That is generally bigger than a Coke can at the bottom. And that single frond there must be over 10 meters long. Angiopteris evecta. One of the largest of all ferns. I don't know if they have any kind of cloth or anything above here. It looks quite open for being in Sydney. You'd think that the heat would batter it. It's obviously part of the reason why they've got this structure, but it does let light through. But it is kind of moist. You can see quite rich soil here. It's damp. The way they kind of built this, obviously with the water, the pond, the little paths that kind of run through, but also the difference in raised levels with some of the rocks and the different ferns that they have kind of growing in those is really nice. Gives you so many different ideas for if you had the space, what you'd potentially do. Another one of those ferns here, just kind of grown in this raised area with the nice kind of pond running through it. a really nice kind of variety in some of the smaller ferns as well, obviously. So Asplenium hamani, quite thick leaves on it, and quite glossy in comparison to some of the others. That kind of purple vein on the underside of the leaves as well is really cool. We obviously have some Siaphia Cooperi here, but this is a one that I actually haven't seen too much of before. Siaphia dealbata, I think it's called, a silver fern. It's got that kind of long, skinny trunk of Siaphias, but I don't know if you can see the fronds on it are very kind of that light blue, silvery colour in comparison to that kind of dark green of the Siaphia Cooperi. It says that it can grow trunks up to 10 metres tall. It looks like they're kind of silver on the underside. And the one we all kind of know and love back home, Dicksonia antarctica. I don't think they're as expensive over here as perhaps they are for us back at home, but so another really interesting area in the Botanical Gardens. So that the Fern house, a lot of different variety of species that would be pretty cool to be able to grow in the UK. The bird's nest fern is definitely something that I need to try and get a hold of. I mean, I'm actually not too sure if they are hardy in the UK, but they are so different. Planted things obviously so nicely here with kind of the trees, but even you've got the palms here, you've got a sabal there, a little staghorn growing up it, with I think some Siaphias there, but then they've also kind of interspersed with a lot more kind of lower bird's nest ferns and other kind of fern varieties, but then there are some grasses and some bromeliads and other species of plants interspersed in. Obviously they all kind of like the same types of conditions, but it does just show I'm the type of person I like to chuck a lot of different things together. My garden's quite small, so I like palms, I like ferns, I like a lot of different variety of plants, and obviously you want to put things in places where you've got the best chance, right plant, right place and all that, but as long as it isn't kind of ridiculously expensive, have a bit of a play around, and that might be something I might try a little bit more of this year. I need a bit of patience obviously for my garden to mature, but it is definitely something I'm going to have a bit more of a crack at. Okay, I'm walking now to find something really rare and interesting that they currently have in the gardens, and that's the corpse flower. I think it's been about 15 years since one has flowered here, and there's less than 1,000 of these flowers in the wild. It's called a corpse flower because of how it smells. It's supposed to smell like rotten flesh, which is interesting, but that's to bring a lot of the insects towards it to capture the pollen and help it pollinate. But they're supposed to be beautiful plants. Okay, so I've been in and it hasn't flowered properly yet, as you've probably seen from some of the footage either before or after this, but it's getting close, and that's really rare to see. As I said before, there's not many around the world, and when they do flower, it lasts for about a day, and it absolutely stinks as well, but it looks amazing. It's supposed to look amazing. That kind of spike going through the middle, it's about 3 foot tall. Once that reaches its peak, that's when the bottom part of it opens out and the flower emerges, and that's when the smell emerges as well, from what I've read. So I'm hoping that if it does flower, someone in there mentioned it might be tonight or tomorrow. If it's tonight, I might get a chance to see it in the morning, which would be pretty cool before we move on. But yeah, glad that I'm sorting that stage anyway, at least. Okay, so just kind of coming out of the fern area that was over there, and just heading down this way. And I think I was mentioning at some point, whether it was earlier on in this video or the last one, that some of the trees and different structures they've got here is amazing. Like, they've got a few different kind of eucalyptus trees growing throughout the gardens that gives a really nice bit of structure. Different heights, barks, leaf shapes, smells and things. Yeah, I would love to have the space to be able to grow some trees through the garden. I think if we head down this way, it goes towards some of the tropical areas. There's some bananas in this direction. Quite a few of these look like they're flowering at the moment. Some of the pseudo stems on these are pretty big. It looks like a very old clump of musa. But look at all these different types of bromeliads that are here. I've tried to have and grow a couple of them before, but I accidentally forgot and left them outside over winter and they died. But it is making me want to try and grow some more of them. Just so much variegation in some of the leaves, from pinks, purples, greens, pretty much everything, and they get pretty big as well. This one's pretty cool, kind of like a yellow, gold and orange Ecma Blanchetiana, unnamed cultivar. Obviously with bromeliads, it looks like here they grow a lot of them in the ground, but a lot of people just kind of have them as air plants that I've seen back in the UK. You see them here kind of growing up, or they've been placed in some of the trees. And some of the flowers that you can get on them they're amazing. Some of them are flowering here. Different colours, yellows, reds, pinks. Like with anything, they've obviously got the climate out here to be able to grow this stuff. I say relatively easily in comparison to us, but definitely something that I might try and get some more of once I've built the greenhouse anyway, because yeah, they obviously do need to be overwintered back at home. There's also an area called the Australian Rainforest Walk, which is where I'm at currently, and it's a really nice section at the top of the gardens where you've got all the native plants put together with a couple of nice walks through. So you can see you've got Dixonias, it looks like there's a Schefflera variation there,
loads of different ferns, sorry, palms I should say, with a really big canopy overhead. It does give you a proper rainforest type vibe. There's also a lot of these native gingers that seem to just grow like wildfire everywhere. They reach a decent height, about 6 feet tall. Some alocasias growing, not as big as other parts of the garden, but still a pretty big size. And obviously look at the left out here. Some of the bird's nest ferns down here as well. And this kind of just takes you out to another section of the palm garden. So another just nice section where you can spend 5-10 minutes just walking through, and you can see there's another section through here. So as you go through the gardens, you can kind of move from one area to the next and not just have to stick to the paths. Walk through the paths where the palms are now, and there's some more interesting plants here. I really like over there, you've got a lot of the philodendrons. I'm not sure if that's gloriosum, but you can see it climbing up the trunks of the trees. This is stuff that people in the UK grow as houseplants, and seeing them in kind of a somewhat natural habitat. Obviously I don't think they're from Australia, I think they're more South America, but it's really cool to be able to see something like that. And now I've got into the succulent garden area. A big old mix of cacti, aloes, yuccas, euphorbias, pretty much anything and everything you'd want to have a look at is here. A lot of stuff I don't know too much about. I've got a couple of yuccas and some different varieties, but I don't have many kind of cacti or anything like that. But you've got some pretty big specimens here. I mean, look at the size of this cacti over here. Looks like it's been propped up by one of the aloes. Euphorbia candelabrum, the candelabrum tree is what it's called. You've got some Dasylirion there. They've got really spiky leaves on that look kind of similar to something like a yucca. And you can see that this one's flowering at the moment. And as you can tell, for all of you individuals that want to grow things like yuccas and any of these kind of drought tolerant species that we know that can handle a lot of the cold but just not the wet, everything here is pretty much planted in a bit of a raised bed, and you can see that a lot of the substrate that's being used is gravel to help with that drainage. It's got drainage holes in the bottom of the wall here as well. This is a really interesting one that I've never seen before, Euphorbia milli, otherwise known as the crown of thorns. Really tightly matted, and look at the spikes. Some nice agave flexospinas there, and another one on the left here called Lechuguilla from northern Mexico. I do like the look of agaves. Definitely something that I'd probably keep in a pot personally in my garden. But I mean, look at the backdrop of some of these cacti and how massive they are. And then just taking a little wander down here, almost lime green or kind of bony white, really pale. So I'm not too sure what the name of these are, but they've got the the steel kind of trellis frames put together to, I guess, create a bit of a structure visually for people to look at and to raise it up in the centre of this kind of arid type bed. And then as we go a little bit further down, we've got a few different opuntias here, interspersed with some more of the yuccas and the agaves here. I don't know if you can see all those spiders' webs at the back there. Opuntia robusta. And look at the flower spike on this one. This one looks like it's been knocked back or even cut off at the top, and has grown a couple of new kind of pads, I believe they're called. And to the left of that, you've got one here that's flowering. I mean, you wouldn't think that, I'm not sure what species this is, but that these kind of cacti, euphorbia kind of variants would flower like this. I mean, they are really nice. Loads of little flower buds on there. I would really recommend, if you do have the privilege of being in Australia and Sydney for any period of time, I'd really recommend coming here to the Botanical Gardens and just have a wander around. You could literally spend hours and hours here. If you're into your tropical plants, if you're into your palms and things, they've got so many amazing species. Yeah, you could spend ages here.